Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Monday's Wake Up. I find the intro here always amusing. It never works as planned, ever. How are you all? Grand risings to you all. It is going to be a scorcher of a week, and I'm loving it. Hope Sonia talks about Afro Man's case at some point. Esme, send me details. What's happening with Afro Man? How are you all? Morning all. Always a problem with StreamYard. I'm going to have to move this, aren't I? I'm going to have to move it to another service. Grand risings or Jen's in Centre Parks. I'm not even a little bit jealous, Jen. Well, actually, I am completely. Welcome to the show that knows there is a manufactured race war taking place, and I will not be part of it. The only way I will be part of it is by calling out the race baiters. Oh, yes. Welcome to Wake Up. I've entered my villain era and I'm loving it. I am indeed. What is on today's show? We'll be joined by royal author Andrew Lownie, who's going to be talking to us about what has happened since he released his book entitled. We'll also be joined by two nurses, one current, one former, from the 19 Nurses platform, who will be talking about Lucy Letby. And we'll also be joined by lovely psychotherapist John HENDEN, who's going to be talking about the open dialogue approach to good thinking and good living. Good morning to you all. Merry melting Monday, says Bethany. Indeed. Keep the fire burning. And loads of news today, loads of comment. Let's not even hang around. Let's get on to it. So according to Donald Trump, Keir Starmer is resigning today. Has Trump been given the nod from Israel? Remember, the world's first trillionaire wants Starmer out. Money can make things happen, kids. And according to Baroness Jackie Smith, who was elevated to the House of Lords by Keir Starmer 2 years ago, she said that Keir Starmer has spent the weekend considering his future. And she said, my understanding from those I've spoken to who were close to the Prime Minister yesterday is that he has spent the weekend thinking very carefully about the future of the country and what is the best thing to do for the British people. Thank you, Jillpedia, for your early super chat. I appreciate it. I understand Burnham met with Jewish leaders several weeks ago before the Makerfield by-election, before he was voted in, because that's kind of how these things line up. It is a fact, whether people want to accept it or not, but you are not going to get to be the Prime Minister of the UK unless you are with the Zionist agenda. Look what happened to Jeremy Corbyn. And so we shall see. Is the UK heading for its fifth unelected leader since 2016? Because obviously, of course, they're all saying that Andy Burnham is a shoo-in after he won Makerfield last week. And it's going to get interesting, because I noted that the Labour Friends of Israel are congratulating Andy Burnham on his victory in the Makerfield by-election. We look forward to working with you as you return to the Commons, and wish you well as the new Labour MP for Makerfield. Sounds like a contract in the offing. And there is a new petition. Don't know how new it is, but it's got, when I last checked last night, it had 118,000 signatures. And I don't generally tend to promote petitions. Thought this was an interesting one, though. Call a public inquiry into pro-Israel influence on politics and democracy. Well, we know we are an infiltrated country. We know that. That's just a fact. And victorious Andy Burnham is promising to offer a clear stance on issues such as Israel and Palestine, according to the Jewish News. They said they are waiting to see what he has to say. Thank you, Nymph, for your early super chat. I very much appreciate that. The Makerfield by-election. So what happened? It was held on Thursday last week, resulted in, well, what some people consider to be a landslide victory for Labour's Andy Burnham, who secured 54.8% of the votes and a majority of 9,241 votes over Reform UK, who came in second. And Labour MP Josh Simon, he vacated his seat in order for Andy Burnham to move from being the Mayor of Manchester to now back into Parliament again. Andy Burnham will be making his return to Parliament today. So we shall see what happens. So what happened? Because a lot of people really thought that Reform were going to win this. And actually, to be fair, they didn't do that bad. It doesn't, I mean, I know people say, oh, they did terribly. Actually, Andy Burnham had nearly 25,000 votes and they had nearly 16,000 votes. And I think in part, Reform had a truly terrible campaign, They did rookie mistakes. They went campaigning with people they considered to be celebrities, such as June Slater, as one example. June Slater was pictured in the van with Rob Kenyon, the Reform candidate, and then June Slater and Liz Truss got together and they were talking about how Labour's panicking over Reform. And they showed all these pictures as if June Slater, who's just an online gobby woman, they showed all these pictures as if she's a celebrity. But the one they didn't show is the one that I always keep in my files. And I don't know if I shared this with you before. This is June Slater doing blackface, Diane Abbott, to be precise. Yes, I didn't forget June. This was when June Slater did blackface of Diane Abbott and called her the gorilla, said the gorilla has spoken. Reform is dogged with people like this, dogged with it. Yeah, June is an asset, right? Exactly. She is an asset in all the wrong ways possible. And I pointed this out to June previously when she was previously promoting Lawrence Loser Fox political party, and she blocked me, which is a bit of a pity. And Reform also had to apologise for their "I would rather vote for Jimmy Savile than Labour," which Lee Anderson, a leading member of Reform, tried to act like it was AI. He either lied or he's an idiot, probably both. And the Jimmy Savile slogan, they ended up having to apologise for. So none of it worked well for them. And Restore is an internet party. That's what it is. It's an internet party. My favourite part of the whole thing was watching the people who have been pushing Restore, like Dan Wootton and those mugs. They're mugs. And they're divisive people. They want to create a race riot in our country. Dan Wootton, sod off back to your own country. Yes, we can do remigration with people like Dan Wootton as well, right? But anyway, the funniest thing was when the votes came in for Reform, it's like 3,000. And you just saw the looks on the faces of these people who have pushed it endlessly because they know they're dealing with a turkey. And I don't care what anybody thinks. I told you I've entered my villain period. And none of these parties are taking out the uni-party system. They disgust the vast majority of decent Brits. They disgust me. If you support either of them, be prepared that they will be systematically dismantled on Wake Up on a regular basis. And this might not be the platform for you. This might not be the channel for you. You might need one of the more racist channels. But yeah, absolute turkey. There was really no opposition to Andy Burnham. That is a Labour stomping ground in Makerfield, and he made it his own. And you know what? Last week was a great week to bury bad news. At the start of the week, we heard about the two men found guilty over the Starmer arson attack. Roman Lavrinovich, the Ukrainian national, was sentenced to 7 years in prison for conspiracy to commit arson. Then you had Stanislav Karpiuk, the Roman national, who was sentenced to 2 years in prison for his supporting role in the so-called conspiracy. Petra Pochinok, a third co-defendant, was acquitted of all conspiracy charges. The attacks took place over a 5-day period in May 2025. It involved a vehicle that had previously been owned by Keir Starmer. A fire was lit at the doors of a flat complex previously linked to Starmer in Islington. An arson attack targeted Starmer's Kentish townhouse. And the two guys, the whole trial was a farce, an absolute farce. Prosecutors revealed that the men were apparently recruited via the Telegram messaging app by a handler using the alias L Money. The handler promised cash and crypto payments said to be linked to Russia. A parallel BBC Panorama investigation claimed that L Money was Ivany Lushekin, a 23-year-old Russian diplomat and son of a senior official trained in information warfare. They've all been desperate to link this up to Russia. I thought one of the most interesting comments came from Dominic D'Souza, who said, "I was a leading defense counsel for Pochinok, who was acquitted." Having come across your video, he's talking to a podcaster, Crispin Flintoff, I think it was. And he said, even as the defense barrier in the trial itself, I still find my head pickled over what real underlying truths were never exposed, because the lawyers had applied to find out more about this El Money character, and the judge had denied them their application. The judge did not want to know the motives of it, did not want to know the provenance of any of this. And we all know that it's a cover-up. But what a week for it all to happen. Extraordinary week last week. So much was kicking off, and it was Labour who famously at the time, their kind of PR marketing woman when 9/11 happened, who said a good day to bury bad news. And it happened again last week. There was the horrendous conviction of what had happened to poor baby Preston Davy at the hands of two sociopaths, very, very sick individuals indeed. That swept over kind of like, newsrooms. There was the whole thing to do with under 16 ban on social media, which of course would impact us all, because you can only know that somebody is under 16 by checking their ID, right? So of course that impacts us all. And I'll be talking a little bit later how I intend to get around that for Wake Up viewers. And the other thing that I found most disturbing, because that's what I say, we're in a manufactured race war, was this: 5 stabbed in what appears to be an anti-Muslim attack. Where is the outcry? Where is the COBRA meeting? The stabbing happened in Edinburgh on Friday. A 36-year-old Scottish man has been charged following a series of suspected anti-Muslim attacks. Left 5 men injured. Counter-terrorism policing Scotland leading the ongoing investigation. 5 men, 2 of them we understand are Muslim. They were targeted near mosques. And the suspect roamed the street carrying a machete, which he used to attack pedestrians, smash business windows. And he was going on about protecting the country and protecting children from these Muslims. And I wonder where he's getting all that from. I wonder who could have radicalized him. That's why I take very seriously people like Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage, Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson, because they are stoking a race war. And innocent people are going to be harmed because of these meatheads, and I'm not having it. And if you align with those people, if you are racist adjacent, then you're just a racist. Simple as that. I don't care. I don't care anymore. People are like, oh, well, I support what Rupert Lowe is saying. Well, then you support, what is essentially a racist party. Deal with it. Suck it up, lamb chop. And you know what? The backlash against these protesters is really significant now. I do not support violence in any way, shape or form. And we saw Katie Hopkins getting booed out of a pub last week. And I didn't support that. I don't support her being booed out of a pub, but it's also the right of the people in that pub to boo her out, because that's free speech as well. And she was in a pub in East London. She probably thought she was amongst like-minded kind of like Zionist people, and she wasn't. She was amongst good, decent English, British people who just are not putting up with that shtick anymore, because like me, they know there is a race baiting war taking place online. And it's at the hands of people like her. And it's also at the hands of people like this guy called Young Bob. And I don't like to see anybody roughed up, but he got roughed up last week. But then there's a video of him on TikTok where he's talking about, kind of like, as long as you're prepared to pay the price for it, then, he's talking about violence, about using violence. The backlash against these protesters has begun. And I'm here for it, but not in a violent way. Do not be violent to these people just because you disagree with them. Do not be violent with them, right? Turn your back on them, ignore them. What I did yesterday was I essentially muted all of the accounts that I possibly could to do with like restore and reform, because I don't want those people on my social media timelines. They're toxic, they're like ill-informed, and they just want to blame foreigners all the time for everything. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. And I'm over it, and I'm not having it. I'm not having it. Simple as that. And again, villain era. So I'm not looking for your approval. Okay. I'm not looking for your approval. I'm just telling you where I am, what my position is. Let me just see if my first guest is here. He has arrived. So I'm not going to hang around anymore. I want to talk about Geneva shortly. My daughter was in Geneva last week. There was all the G7 protests. She sent me some fantastic pictures, which I will, because the G7 obviously was over the border in France, but the protests were also taking place in Switzerland. I'm going to be talking about that shortly, but I want to start with my first guest. Here he is. Hello, Andrew Lownie. How are you?
I'm very well. Very nice to be back with you, Sonia.
Andrew, it's great to have you back with us, because I remember in the early days when I was, interviewing you and you were coming on my shows, and that was when you were just like trying to get the message out, and then everything has just snowballed. And I think it all snowballed after the release of Entitled, right? And Entitled, of course, huge, massive book, now in paperback, The Rise and Fall of the House of York. Andrew, you've literally seen the fall of the House of York following the release of your book. What do you think about all of this that's happened, and how much of a part do you think your book has played in all this?
Well, it's very kind of you to say that. I hope I loosened the earth. I think I by kind of putting everything together, I think I did raise questions about the way that the York family were basically abusing their position as royals to make money for themselves. And I think that emboldened the press. And I think we had it, when you talk about a snowball effect, I think that's exactly what happened. So the press began to run stories about, for example, Andrew and Sarah Ferguson knowing Epstein much longer. We had then, I think, Virginia Giuffre's book, which I think kind of humanized the whole story, made people realize actually what was at stake here. I think the real game changer, though, was the Epstein files being released from last December, because that really gave us chapter and verse of what they were up to.
It's a perfect storm, wasn't it? All coming together at the same time in many respects. Your book, The Epstein Files, very sad about Virginia, obviously, but it all seemed to come together at the same time. And that just created this, tipping point. I mean, I think that's really what happened.
Yeah, I think things are, I hope, are changing. I think when the King was being heckled at Lichfield in October, we began to see, movements against Andrew and his behavior. But I think also we're now seeing wider questions about royal accountability and privilege being asked. We've had the King announce this week that he's going to declare how much tax he pays. We're not going to be clear exactly how that's calculated and on what. But that's a sign to a bit more openness. It's not enough, I don't think, but it's some way. And I think they realize that, in order to win back public approval after the scandals of Harry and Andrew, they need to be less opaque about their finances. We've had the Sunday Times and Channel 4 investigations showing that they are basically creaming off profits from public services and these estates that they own, the Dodgy of Lancaster and Cornwall, are really public monies, which kind of were given to them years ago and they kind of use. So I hope we will see more parliamentary accountability, and we will see, I hope, these duchy estates soon within the Treasury where they could do a lot of good.
What do you think were probably the most sort of earth-shattering revelations to come from the book? I know people really enjoyed, stories like, Puffy, P. Diddy and Sarah Ferguson, stuff like that. But what do you think in terms of like actually making a difference, some of the most important revelations were?
Well, the book was supposed to be focused on the financial revelations. And I think, the fact that Andrew was very blatantly using his role as a trade envoy to make money for himself and his mates, often who were bankrolling him and his ex-wife. I think the fact he was sharing confidential information with them, which is against Official Secrets Act. I don't understand why they're talking about malfeasance in public office. There's a very clear charge that could be leveled at him. I think the fact that it wasn't just him. The Queen protected him. She gave him new fresh honors each time he was named in some Epstein allegation. The fact that Charles has sat on these 33,000 emails of incriminating evidence against Andrew, which came from a hack into Jonathan Rowlands' business associates' files, which lays out all Andrew's misdemeanors. Nothing was done with that, and still hasn't been done with it. Thames Valley Police say they haven't actually got access to that material for their criminal investigation. So we have on one side the palace saying, yes, we will cooperate and the law must take its course. On the other hand, we have police officers being reminded of their obligations of confidentiality and useful material not being shared with the police. And I think that's what I found so shocking, that this is part of an endemic corruption of an institution rather than just two bad apples.
And that actually is the reality, because as long as I've known you on this subject, certainly over the last, well, almost a decade now, I think I've known you for, but over the
Yeah.
last 6 years when you've been talking about this, and when you set out to write about Andrew, you were already dealing with the fact that they say one thing publicly and then behave another way behind the scenes, certainly in terms of the release of information. I want you to give my viewers some idea of how difficult it has been for you to get hold of information that should be available in the public domain.
Well, I mean, for example, in the freedom of information requests I put in, I think probably several hundred over the last 5 years, they are bound, I mean, government departments, public authorities to respond to FOI. But not a single one has been answered, I would say, properly with any information. I mean, one of the obvious things I've asked is who accompanied Andrew on these trips as a trade envoy when he was a public servant, paid for by taxpayers, in effect a civil servant, subject to all the rules that civil servants are. And it's a simple question. Often this information used to be in the court circular, and they've used every exemption possible, from national security and law enforcement to health and safety and personal data, not to answer a simple question. And the reason for that is that he was taking his daughters, he was taking Epstein, David Rowlands, whole David Tang, who paid for Sarah's debts, etc. So there's a sort of giant cover-up. It's not just the palace, it's actually the government itself. Many of the Foreign Office told diplomats not to talk to me. Of the 3,000 people I approached, 2,700 either didn't answer or refused to cooperate. And that's why I think it's important as a parliamentary inquiry. The former heads of UKTI wouldn't talk to me. The ambassadors in Afghanistan, Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan wouldn't talk to me. And they knew exactly what was going on. I mean, there are lots of stories I got of actually diplomats providing prostitutes, sex workers for Andrew on these trips. The fact that his massages with their happy endings was put on the public tab. So this is, and the people who spoke out against this found that their careers were curtailed. So there's a huge cover-up that's been going on. And though the original crimes, both sexual and financial, are pretty awful, it's actually the cover-up which I find pretty distasteful.
And obviously, and we hear that often, don't we? It's not the initial crime, quote unquote, itself that is often the problem, because when people admit to making mistakes, then people can cope with that, but it is the cover up that remains the problem. So when you set out to write entitled, he was Prince Andrew, they were the Duke and Duchess of York, now he's none of those things, and he's also under police investigation. Do you get any feedback from your contacts about what they think about you and your role in this?
Oh, I get hate mail the whole time. I had one this morning. But I also get briefings against me. It's all done, of course, behind the scenes. There's an awful lot of trolling, a lot of accusations, a lot of trying to undermine my credibility. So, yeah, that's the price you pay for, speaking truth to power. But you just need to keep on. And I think the encouraging thing is, we have got more people beginning to kind of realize the seriousness of all this. A Green MP, Sean Berry, today has launched, I think, a private member's bill for the royal family to be no longer to be exempted from the Freedom of Information Act, so that we can ask questions. And I've been calling for all the files on Andrew's time as a trade envoy, many of which should have been released under the Public Records Act many years ago, to be released. I mean, if they have nothing to hide, they have nothing to fear. But I think there are lots of things that we could do, certainly more parliamentary scrutiny of the royals. We could look at a royal register of their business interests, because one of the things that's emerged from this is it's not just Sarah Ferguson and Andrew, it's the two daughters who are basically used by their companies as introducers of business. And those contacts come from their time going with their father on these trade trips. And the royal contacts they've built up traveling the Middle East, and their pay to appear at events, to endorse, in effect, certain banks, for example. Some pretty unsavory people are basically paying them. And that's not the way that the royals should behave. I mean, also, these two women have got subsidized accommodation in royal palaces, and they do no royal duties whatsoever. So I think there are a lot of things that could be done to tidy up this thing, because at the moment I think the support for the royal family is dropping quite considerably. We've had polls in the last few weeks showing that. And if they want to restore trust and respect and really set an example as what they're meant to do, then they need to get their act together, because otherwise I don't think they will survive.
Ooh, well, that makes me smile. But I know that you're a royalist, and actually, that might be difficult for some people to believe, given. But you didn't. The whole point about you writing the book was you just wanted to uncover what was going on, because it doesn't mean you're anti-royalist just because you're telling the truth about the royal family. It wasn't a hit job as such. It was based on fact and evidence, right?
Yes, well, I mean, you can still support an institution and yet be concerned about the behavior of some of its members.
Right, right.
I want a monarchy, but I don't want a corrupt monarchy, and I can't imagine anyone else does. This isn't an attack on the monarchy, it's an attack on the people who have undermined actually what the monarchy should be. And I think all those members of the royal family, Princess Anne's and Prince Edward's, who do their job, who don't have their noses in the trough, must be appalled by the behavior of people like Harry and Meghan and Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. So in some ways, I think they should be rallying to the barricades on this, because this is not the sort of monarchy that we as taxpayers should be spending our money on.
No, no, indeed. What is happening in terms of the police investigation? Do we know? Because is this about misconduct, in allegations of misconduct in public office from when he was a trade envoy?
Well, there are lots of accusations that charges that could be leveled. I mean, there have been a breaking of charity law, of companies, the Companies Act, fraud. I think the really obvious one is the sharing of confidential information by Andrew, which is a breach of the Official Secrets Act, which is treason. And that's very easy. We see it in the Epstein releases. We see when he received information and what he shared and with whom. I think the malfeasance in public office, they're sort of pretending that's going to be difficult because he wasn't paid, etc. So I think that's a bit of a side issue. I know the police are struggling to get people to come forward on the sex trafficking charges, because a lot of the lawyers don't want their clients to come forward, or the clients don't want to come forward, because it would just be lots and lots of publicity. They don't have any faith in the police investigating these things. And many of these people are now very respectable. Their children perhaps don't know what was involved. And so they're reluctant to come forward. And I understand that Andrew has been paying off some of his victims over the last few months to avoid them coming forward. So that's going to be a tricky one. But, I think what is odd is I think this has been kitchen for long grass. We've got, I think, 9 or 10 police forces looking at this. We've got no evidence, no suggestion of when anything will be brought in terms of charges. I've offered my information. They've never come to me. Everyone I've spoken to who has information has not been approached by the police. And so one does wonder what they are doing. Police Scotland have done absolutely nothing. And yet Balmoral was one of the places where he took the young girls most. So one just has to wonder if this is back to what you were talking about before, the smoke and mirrors, the performative behavior, where they will do something, appear to do something in public, but actually nothing goes on in private. There's one interesting case in Surrey where a victim's come forward and claimed that she was tortured by Ghislaine and Andrew watched. And it'll be interesting to see if that case is pushed forward. But we've had so many of these allegations being made. Virginia Giuffre was doing it until her death. There were calls for investigation by the Met up to last year, and they were all turned down. And certainly the people I've talked to at the National Crime Agency, who should be leading this but have not been involved, they're saying, well, this will just be kicked around. No one wants to touch this.
You said something back there, just one line, but it's very significant. You said that he's been paying off other women over the last few months. Tell me a bit more about that.
Well, I have no proof of that. That's what I've been told by people around him. We know that he was destroying evidence. I mean, there are a lot of material was shred. I mean, I suspect a lot of the hard drives have been chucked in the sea. So, and this is what's so odd. I mean, these stories have been in the press for 25 years. Right. My book came out almost a year ago. We had Sarah caught on film selling access to Andrew in 2010. We had the Selman Turk case in 2022, where there was unexplained monies in the York's bank account. And yet nothing ever has been done. And of course, we had these 33,000 emails 6 years ago. Nothing's ever done. And you kind of wonder, are they actually perverting the course of justice here? So I do have my concerns that, everything has been scrubbed. They haven't gone and talked to all the people they need to. And it's going to be very difficult to get a conviction because of their sort of, shall we say, their laziness.
Any good stories that you haven't discussed with anybody else in your book?
Well, I mean, I had dinner, good stories, which are not always very positive about Andrew. I mean, I had some very interesting discussions on Friday night with a former American intelligence official talking about actually how they had been covering stuff up. I was talking to one of my sources abroad yesterday who's claiming that Fergie is not in Switzerland, but somewhere else abroad. So, which I'm just trying to follow up at the moment. I mean, of course, there are lots and lots of stories that Fergie is out there penning her memoirs, and she's going to use that as blackmail to get some sort of pension or payment, or at least to make large sums of money. There are big debates going on in the royal family between William and Charles about how to deal with the problem. Do you keep them inside the tent, as Charles feels, or do you actually cut them loose and just suffer the consequences, as William feels? And I think there's also a tension that, William feels this is a problem that his father needs to solve. The Queen passed on the baton to Charles. William doesn't want Charles to pass on the baton to him to solve. Unless they clean the stables in this reign, this problem is going to get bigger and bigger. And I'm already hearing stories of other members of the royal family, including Charles and Edward, who were involved with Epstein. And so it's not just Andrew. And that would make a lot of sense. Epstein targeted members of all the European royal families. Andrew and Sarah were only a means to get to the king and the former queen.
That's interesting. You talk about Charles and Edward. That's something you're exploring now in terms of Epstein.
Yes, I'm working on a new book called Untitled, Epstein and the Fall of the House of Windsor.
Wow. Well, I look forward to that, Andrew. It's always lovely to catch up with you. Well done with your book. Tremendous work. Tremendous work. Andrew Lownie, everybody. Have a terrific week. Take good care of yourself.
Thanks a lot.
Lovely to have you with us. I'm so proud of him. I feel like your mother, Andrew. It's weird. Take care.
Thank you.
That would be interesting. See, the thing is, we know that. I think I just saw Mark say in the comments, you pull one thread and the whole lot unravels. And that is the reality. But we've never had an association, have we, previously with Edward and Charles and Epstein. So I think that in its own right would be very interesting indeed. Ta-da, Andrew, says Herbert. Epstein is everywhere. I really like listening to Andrew, says Vendetta. Thank you, Andrew. Good name for the book, isn't it? Isn't it an excellent one? Right. Let me bring in my next guest. He's already here. Why didn't you ask him why he says Epstein worked for the Russians? Sorry, missed it. It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't controlled opposition type of thing. Not at all. I can ask him next time. Okay. I'm behind. Let me speed up the playback. Shin, I sent you an image from Geneva, something to do with Donald Trump, and I think it's written in French, and I asked you if you could translate it for me because it didn't make any sense. I'd really appreciate that. Gypsy John says, Sonia, to me, William seems to be the most unlikable out of all the royals. He gives mega sinister vibes. What, compared to all of them? I mean, I don't like him. I'm not keen on him. But I suppose somewhere still in my heart, I have this image of he and Harry being like 11 and 13 and walking, by their mum's coffin. So, and I think that's a lot of British people. We still feel like that. Right. We're all uncontrolled opposition. Yes, absolutely. I get you. John says, hope Lownie doesn't have a mysterious car crash in a tunnel. Right. I've got you. Right. Let's bring in John. John Hendon, lovely psychotherapist. How are you, John?
I'm very well, thanks, Sonia, and trying to keep cool this lovely weather we're having.
I'm loving it so much. Now I've done my garden. I'm absolutely loving it so much, and I've got a new sunbed, and just lying out there, John, is just so wonderful. Warm weather is the best. As long as you're able to be protected and shaded, it's just so wonderful. Changes your entire mood, doesn't it? You must know something about that psychologically.
Oh, yes. I mean, there's a lot of research on the pineal gland, the third eye, and the sunlight on that, and the feel-good factor. And one of the ways to lift moods in the winter, if you suffer from the winter blues, as soon as there's a sunny day, well, it doesn't matter how cold it is, get out there and get some sunshine, and we always feel better. It gives us a lift, doesn't it?
It certainly does. So lift us up, John, because you do have a wonderful habit of doing that. And one of the things that you've talked about previously that you wanted to talk about was open dialogue. In fact, you mentioned it the last time, didn't you, that you were on with us? And just take it away wherever you want to. What is open dialogue, and how
Yes,
can it help us?
well, you know, part of my first submission to the Lampard inquiry, as you know, that's the inquiry into these 2,000 untoward deaths within Essex NHS mental health service trusts. And in my submission to Lady Lampard, or to Baroness Lampard, I said, you know, that open dialogue is an alternative to biomedical psychiatry. And really, I hope the outcome of her inquiry will be pointing to better ways of helping people in emotional distress rather than clobbering them with the biomedical model.
Exactly. And so we do need to find new approaches. We know that, because clearly something's not working, John. It can't be working that we're doing the same old with people who are in some kind of distress. So what is open dialogue? Talk to us about it.
Open dialogue is an approach to working with people. It's a collaborative crisis response model. And this was pioneered by a Finnish psychiatrist, Jaakko Sekkälä, if I've pronounced his name correctly. And he was doing this work in the 1980s in Finland. And there are 7 core principles to this approach. One is immediate help for the person in distress, so within 24 hours. It's a social network perspective. You bring the family and their social networks, friends, etc. Flexibility and maneuverability, or mobility. So if the person has a crisis in, say, a gymnasium, the whole team can go to the gymnasium rather than shipping the person off to a psychiatric unit, which is the current practice. And then responsibility. So the first clinician called to the scene is the one that sees the process through. They have responsibility for that. Fifthly, psychological continuity. So the whole team sees the process through. And then tolerance of uncertainty. And I can remember, as a community mental health worker, the many crises I was involved in. And sometimes clinicians would come in and say, oh, well, yeah, it's clear what's going on here. This person's got schizophrenia. They need to go into hospital and they need medicating straight away. And yet there are other occasions where I've said, hang on a minute, let's just look at what's going on here. What's a better outcome? What's the client or the patient got to say about what they want and need here? So this tolerance of uncertainty is key to this open dialogue approach. And then the 7th principle is dialogue, and that is multiple perspectives from all agencies, whoever may be involved, to see to get an understanding, a shared understanding of what the helpful goal might be.
So this is
now.
Sorry, go on, John. Yeah, go on, carry on.
I was going to say, now, the good news of this study I think it's 1985, this started. They've been able to do a 5-year follow-up, 10-year follow-up, and 20-year follow-up.
Wow.
And now this is really interesting. What they discovered was that 85% of all those people in emotional distress in crisis, 83% are either in full-time employment, full-time education, or seeking employment. And let's get the figures right, 67% do not have an antipsychotic prescription after all this period of time. Now, and there are very low rates of chronic schizophrenia. Now, how this compares to the UK over the last,
right.
well, 50 years that I've been working in mental health.
Wow, that
system,
long.
Yeah, is that, someone who experiences delusions of persecution, or they're hearing voices, or they're seeing visions, etc. The likely outcome within 24 hours of being admitted to a psychiatric unit, they are prescribed heavy duty antipsychotic medication. And it doesn't stop there. that is then continued without much review until they become chronic, unemployable, and on various benefits and long-term sickness. So the incidence, if you compare, the open dialogue approach to the current medical model approach in psychiatry, high chronic levels over time because people are on these long-term medication.
I mean, it's quite substantial, isn't it? So that essentially is the Finnish model, right? Or
Yes.
and that, I mean, that's really where it's at. And so in terms of the UK, how far away are we from that? Because we do dialogue, don't we, in terms of treatment?
Yes. Now, here is some good news
Ooh.
and some not so good news. The good news, and this is a cue for a poster coming up here.
Let's have a poster.
Which I know some of your viewers absolutely love.
Breaking news, Keir Starmer has resigned.
Not surprised about that. Yeah, it was expected, wasn't it?
Yeah, right. We'll get onto that later. But thank you in the comments. I'm assuming that's that is right, and I haven't just made an announcement that is inaccurate. Sorry,
No,
John. Please continue.
I'm sure you're right. Yeah. So OD, open dialogue, and the UK version is POD, which stands for peer supported open dialogue. So in addition to the clinicians who are involved in the assessment of the individual in crisis, they're adding a peer review, a peer supporter. So someone who's perhaps had emotional distress themselves or gone through some sort of psychological trauma, they're on the side. And if you like, they're advocating for the patient or the client here. And it's the peer supporters' responsibility to maintain continuity, because in the NHS, and I'll come on to that in a minute, there's teams change, staff leave, staff fall away, and various other organizational problems. So the peer supporter is really crucial. So this is the peer supported open dialogue.
I already see the value in that, because that consistency is so important when somebody is dealing with a psychological issue, right?
Yes,
Brilliant
it is
stuff.
absolutely
Right.
crucial.
Right.
And then now this is the good news about the NHS. There's the Odessi scheme, which was or trial rather, which was put into practice something like I think it started about 2 or 3 years ago. And this stands for the Open Dialogue Evaluation of Service Systems Initiative. Now, the NHS chose 5 NHS trusts to trial peer supported open dialogue within NHS mental health services to see how it compared and contrasted with outcomes to psychiatry as usual. So great, this is good news. The however is, or the but is, the trial finished quite a while ago and they're still crunching the figures and looking at the evaluation of it to see how effective it's been. And it's purportedly going to be the final reports coming out at the end of the year, but I don't think it will. There's so much to crunch there in terms of numbers. It might not be until early next year, but anyway, that's coming out. But don't hold your breath. And that's what I say in terms of how it might compare with the Finnish model, because there's been all sorts of obstacles to it. You can imagine biomedical psychiatry not welcoming it at all because of their loss of autonomy, their loss of authority, fear that it will show that this approach produces positive outcomes. So there's been practical organization and cultural resistance to the whole scheme. However, I think it will show that things are better with this approach. But in terms of these amazing results, the Finnish one, 83% in full-time employment education and 67% not on medication. don't expect that.
Extraordinary. I wonder what is different about the Finnish system that allowed it to have this develop without those same kind of obstacles, because obviously we have the obstacles from the as you say, the biomedical practitioners themselves, but obviously that's backed up by the pharmaceutical giants, which have a massive say on all of this. And if there's been such a reduction, and did you say 85% are working now, and that's extraordinary, and that is so significant that I feel the resistance in the UK is going to be so great. But what do you think is so different that the Finnish system allowed this?
Well, very good question, Sonia. And the answer is they were able to take a small area, I think it was a town and its sort of surrounding rural area, and they transformed the whole service into open dialogue. So biomedical psychiatry was set aside, and they had the whole service devoted to open dialogue. And so they could do that, with impunity almost. Now, the trouble with the NHS mental health services is this is the POD, or the Odessi trial, is bolted on to existing psychiatry. So it's not going to be the same, it's not really comparing like with like. High volume fragmented systems like NHS mental health system, bolting this on as an add-on is not ideal.
So we have to wait until the end of the year to get some kind of conclusion to that. But your feeling is that this is not going to go smoothly, that there are obstacles.
Yeah, there have been obstacles all along the way, and the results won't be as dramatic as the Finnish study. But I mean, the point of raising this, open dialogue approach, open dialogue along with soteria houses, which we talked about a few months ago, and other approaches which don't involve admission to hospital and heavy medication. These approaches, and the other one, of course, is more therapeutic services available in primary health care to keep people away from biomedical psychiatry as well. These are all far more effective, they're far more person-centered, and they're not institutionalizing or stigmatizing people by banging them up in psychiatric units. So this has got to be the future. But we, as you alluded to then, we have a lot of opposition from as I call the terrible twins, big psychiatry and big psychopharma.
Yeah.
They're not going to give up easily their power and control.
I mean, putting that aside, have we improved, though, in terms of how we're dealing with people with psychological issues? Has there been any improvement?
Well,
the sigh, John.
I know. Why do I hesitate? I try and keep in touch with what's going on, and there are some wonderful areas of brilliance, if you like. I mean, the solution-focused approach to certain psychological conditions is bubbling up in places here and there, and but it's patchy, the improvement. But generally, big psychiatry, biomedical psychiatry, means a real strong grip on things, and they can. I mean, I've seen during my career how they can use subtle and just careful strategies to try and sabotage these new approaches as they come into practice. So yes, in parts it's getting better.
In parts. It's going to take such a sea change, though, isn't it? Because you were the one who introduced me to Joanna Moncrief and what she had to say, which just turns the whole biomedical model on its head in terms of depression. But even that is only just it's a slow filtering, that it's not just big pharma and big psychiatry, is also big media that is also invested in keeping things the same way that it's always been. But I really do hope that we are going to get some movement forward. John, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I mean, if anyone would like, what I've done, I've listed all the, how big psychiatry can object to the pod approach. I've listed the comparisons between solution focused and this approach, and also other key points about open dialogue generally in a paper. And if anyone wants a copy of that, it's about a 4-pager, but it's very succinct and summarizes it. They can feel free to just email me directly, and it's on my website anyway, my email address there. I'm happy to send out that. And also, you remember last time we spoke about the Lampard inquiry and those 10 key points that some NHS mental health service managers can use to not cooperate when services are under scrutiny.
Yes.
I've got those 10 key points, and I'd be happy to ping that to anyone who would like it too.
You're a star. There's some great comments here. Let me see if I can find that they haven't left. This is I think this is so profound from Shug, convincing you that you're faulty is big business. That's the other thing, isn't it? It's how we so quickly seek, rather than, you've talked about this before, rather than look at the environment or the circumstances that are impacting people, we automatically assume that the person is faulty and needs some kind of, so we need to, that's an attitude change that we need to have, isn't it? And also for the patient themselves, not to automatically assume that there's something wrong with them just because they feel sad or happy. Perfectly normal, isn't it, to kind of bounce up and down at times?
Yes, exactly. And this fits nicely with what I've talked before about Lucy Johnson's great work, power, threat, meaning framework. Rather than seeing the person as something wrong with them, look at what the threats are in their life, where their power lies, and what meaning they're making of things, rather than thinking, oh yeah, we've got a symptom here, right, put this diagnostic label on them, and that sticks with them forever.
Thank you for being with us. We very much appreciate it. I'm sorry about the breaking news thing. We didn't get 45 minutes into the show before the Prime Minister decides he's off. Lovely to have you with us always, John. Very much appreciate it. Everybody, John HENDEN, the best psychotherapist in the business. And don't you forget it. Take good care of yourself, John. Have a tremendous week. Lovely to see you.
You have a great week too, Sonia.
Thank you,
Bye
John.
now.
Bye. Bye. Wonderful to see John HENDEN. And what exciting news. 45 minutes into the show and the Prime Minister has gone. What are our thoughts, kids? What are we thinking? So I think that the pressure on him probably is now too great. I saw that Warren Thornton mentioned about how Keir Starmer and Andy Burnham had a meeting with, I think, Friends of Israel yesterday, but I haven't been able to confirm that. I don't know if that's true or not. But so he's resigned and that's it. Game over for the Starmer era. And I think people think that Andy Burnham is going to be completely different. What a joke that is, really. So your thoughts on Keir Starmer resignation? Some told Starmer to go as he is no longer useful. Yes, Starmer has gone, Stephen. Absolutely. The day's getting better and better, says Shin. I see. So Shin, you were answering my question about the G7. Let me just show you. What does this mean, Shin? So my daughter, oh, no, that's entitled, that's Andrew Lownie's book. My daughter was in Geneva last week, quite by accident. G7 just across the border in France, but a lot of the protests were taking place in Geneva. Shops were boarded up, loads of shops boarded up. But what does this mean, Shin? My translation of it, is it something to do with Trump accosting your children? Is that what it means? Did I get that wrong? Good riddance, Starmer. We are born on depths. Think about it. What's that? Trump knew at the weekend. He did. Trump knew before we all did. She bring back any duty free? No. Oh, no, I got chocolate, but very melted chocolate. Because, of course, when you go to Switzerland, you want chocolate, right? Burn them out. Shame we can't have a general election. Well, we may well. We may well. Starmer was selected. He did his time now. Burnham is a new face. Trump accosts your children. That's what it means. Trump is lactose free. No, Fred, your French appears to be as poor as mine. Right. I can see that one of my guests has arrived. Yes, you got it right. Is that it? Trump accosts your children. Goodness me. They're not messing around, are they? Because don't forget, in the Epstein files, there are many references, allegations of Trump being an abuser of children. Regardless of who is in charge, the agenda is the agenda is the agenda. Yes, indeed it is. No change. Keir Starmer won't be held accountable and will continue on high pay, change of puppet, but the agenda is the same. Yes, indeed it is. Amy doesn't want a general election. You know Farage will come in. Well, but will he though? We shall see. Right. I'm going to bring in my guest because she's here and we might as well get her talking, and hopefully we'll be joined by the second guest, but we shall see. Here she is. Good morning, Vivienne. I've still got this board up. That's ridiculous. Vivienne Blondek. How are you, Vivienne?
I'm good, thank you. And thank you very much for inviting us onto your programme.
Well, you're very welcome. Oh, is number 19 not well?
She's unwell, I'm afraid. So unfortunately can't make this morning, but yeah, I'll do my best.
I'm sure you'll be absolutely brilliant. You're from 19 Nurses, and the reason that I called her number 19 is we weren't going to give her identity anyway because she is a serving nurse. But are you a former nurse, Vivienne?
Yes, I worked at the Countess of Chester for 36 and a half years, full time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you work with Lucy Letby?
No, I never met her because she was on the building next to us, if you like, separate from us. So we didn't come across the maternity side very often.
So the purpose of 19 Nurses, very important platform that you've got going on there, and you're looking for a judicial review. Just for some background for our overseas viewers, Lucy Letby, of course, former neonatal nurse, convicted of the murder of 7 babies and the attempted murder of a further 7, a long and extensive and very powerful counter campaign about this being a wrongful conviction. And you're of that mind, are you, Vivienne?
Absolutely. I have been from day one.
Day one?
From the day she was arrested, yeah. I also have another part of my background. I was the branch secretary for Unison at the Countess of Chester for about 26 years.
Oh,
so,
interesting.
Yeah, I am heavily involved in the trade union side, staff representation side. And as soon as I saw Lucy's face on that newsreel that night saying that she was been arrested over charges of murdering babies, it just did not fit comfortably at that time. So I put my trade union head back on and started doing a bit of looking into it.
What was the first thing for you as a professional? Because me, I'm just kind of like, bystander looking in, and it didn't feel right to me. But at the beginning, I did think she was guilty because I think that she was so demonized, like these people often are, that you tend to go along with it, don't you? You think, well, how can that have happened to 14 babies? No smoke without fire, that sort of thing. But what was it that you as a professional saw straight away that was problematic, that stood out to you?
Because it had gone on for so long, and the consultants had said they'd complained and complained. Now, my experience in the Countess dealing with staff and disciplinary staff, there is absolutely no way that she could have harmed one baby without her being lifted out of that unit where their feet wouldn't have touched the floor. They are very, very, very strict on that. So there was something sitting there that wasn't right. That was the first red flag to me, and it went on from there.
And I think your perspective is very interesting because you have an intimate knowledge of the scene at the heart of these crimes. So you have an understanding not only of the layout of the land, but the people who are around, the management, the structure, everything. You will also be absolutely aware of the failings of that hospital as well. How much of a part are we talking about here that the failings have played?
when you actually look at it, the failings start very much with austerity. I
agree.
I was working with as a union representative from the mid-80s. So we'd been through the ups and downs. It's been a roller coaster ride over those 26 years. And it was a wonderful experience being able to be part of the rebuilding of the NHS with the national standard frameworks, agenda for change, improving working lives, work-life balance, all of the things putting in for the staff and the patients, which improved the service and patient care immensely. And then to see it being stripped back down again, and you felt like you'd gone full circle when I retired. So the failings start when your finances start getting ripped. Once you start, I mean, this was 5 years. 2015 was 5 years of this austerity, and the management there, the executives there, have got to work within a very tight budget, and they've got to cut their cloth according. Otherwise, they're in serious trouble if they overspend. Totally unfair, totally wrong. But you see, the first things that will be training. They'll cut back on training, equipment won't get replaced, new equipment won't get bought because there's just no funding for it. And then it just escalates on from there, where the staff start working in more stressful conditions. Then they start burning out, they go off sick, it's difficult to replace. And I do know that the neonatal unit had quite a number of vacancies there that they could not fill, for the simple reason there are not enough neonatal nurses, qualified neonatal nurses, to apply for those jobs. So that was another string to it. So yeah, it was very consistent with gross underfunding. So it's multifaceted. What happened there is totally multifaceted, and the Countess was no different to any other trust in the country, who are all facing the same problems and all struggling. It's just unfortunate this ended up becoming headline news, but it could have been any hospital there. In that year, there were 23 identified with a rise in neonatal deaths and stillbirths, but they certainly weren't near the top. They were beyond less than 10 in the list.
So, are you of the mind that she was scapegoated, and if so, why?
100%, absolutely 100% scapegoated. I mean, I go back to the management and the executives at that time. They did investigate. They brought in the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health and asked them to look if they could find a reason why these babies were dying. And they even looked at Lucy and found her to be extremely competent and enthusiastic nurse, with nobody had a wrong word to say about her. So, you know, she was very enthusiastic, and to the fact that she would write clinical incidents in, which is what you should do, is raise the issue. Management can't deal with things if they don't know that there's a problem. And so clinical incidents are a vital part of the role of nurses, doctors, anyone within the healthcare system there, to raise any issues where things might have gone wrong, and so they can be investigated, and you know, systems in place to make sure they don't happen again. And it does work, but there is a reluctance to do that because it looks, you know, management seem to think at times that they're failing. But I do know that Tony Chambers was had a very open door for people that wanted to raise concerns.
Who was Tony Chambers?
He was the chief executive at the time.
Right.
Yeah, he did have an open door on people wanting to raise issues. And they did look at, the executives did look at every aspect there, and they were looking at it. But there was never, ever any evidence that Lucy had harmed a baby. The consultants just said gut instinct. And it's...
What changed? What changed from that moment to suddenly her being the number one suspect and then eventually charged and convicted? What was it, do you think, that was the moment that changed it all?
The grievance she took out against the consultants, or against the trust, the consultants were found to have harassed her. And not only that, just after they were given the verdict of that grievance, and they were told that they needed to write a letter of apology and she would be coming back onto the unit, they also had the report from the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health, which gave 24 recommendations and was not very glowing at all towards the consultants. So it has a bit of a double whammy then. So
I think it's going to get interesting because obviously very strong panel, sort of counter panel that has been pulled together by her new barrister. I say new barrister, he's probably been with her for about a year now, but it feels like a new barrister because he's doing what wasn't done before. For me, for everything that I've come to understand, she was grossly let down at trial. The lack of kind of defense was truly gobsmacking, Vivienne.
Right, I've been looking into that just recently, and the conference we did on Friday last week, my presentation was very much around the failings of the NHS, the police, the courts and the appeal system. But what is really frightening for anybody that finds themselves defending themselves, and particularly when it comes to medical complex cases, is that the whole system is unfair to start with, because the defendant has legal aid, and that legal aid is not substantial at all. It's very, very limited, whereas the prosecution and the CPS have as much money as they need to put that case forward. There is a reluctance from medical experts to defend in the courts as well, because some have done so and ended up being struck off by the GMC. So, and also because the pay for that is often paid so much later, because they've got to wait for all the costings to be done and the LAA to release the funds for them. So they don't get paid for quite some time, and they get paid a pittance in comparison to giving prosecution evidence. So I would say that is why it was so grossly unfair, and so why she had such a poor defence, was the money just wasn't there from legal aid for her to have a decent defence. And that has been recognised in the House of Commons report, the House of Lords report on forensic sciences in criminal cases, and they've identified that as a major issue, and there is not a fair system for defendants to have equal representation.
I thought that the Netflix documentary was very useful in terms of, you could see, I found it truly appalling in many respects, absolute PR. They thought they were Hollywood stars, these cops. It was shocking. But what I thought was insightful was, essentially, I was left with this feeling of, oh my God, any of us could be convicted. It felt so flimsy what they had convicted her on. So I thought that was quite useful. Has that been something that you're nodding your head, yes?
And that was the reason why 19 Nurses came about, is to we are campaigning to protect nurses and to get rid of the toxic culture that is within the NHS. Staff need to be valued, and they work really, really hard, and under very difficult circumstances, very emotional circumstances as well.
It's very difficult to be an NHS whistleblower, isn't it?
Yeah, but no one wants to go into work and find that they've been looking after a patient that's died, only to find themselves being accused of killing that person. And that's happened, Lucy's not the first one. There's another 3 at the moment in prison, still fighting to get to their appeals heard. And interestingly, insulin is the main reason why they're there.
Who's that? Do we know? I mean, you do, presumably.
Yeah, there's 3 there at the moment. There is
3.
Yeah, there's Colin Campbell, Colin Norris, called Colin Campbell now. I think he's 18 years. Ben Geens, 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Then we've got Victorino Chow from the Stepping Hill Hospital, and he's been there, I think it's 11. And
who'd want to go into that profession, though, after the Lucy Letby outcome? You'd be terrified, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is having an impact on recruitment, and staff are saying that I'm leaving because I don't feel safe anymore. I work in an intensive care unit. I work in an A&E department. You know, those are the high risk areas for nurses being falsely accused, because, you know, it's so fast paced. The demands are particularly very, very high, and patients are critically ill, and they don't feel safe anymore. And this is why 19 nurses did come about to say enough's enough now.
Strength in numbers, you need that as well. And what I find impressive about this particular case, and why I think that it is highly likely that the CCRC will refer it to the Court of Appeal, is because of the sort of quality and caliber of those opposing this sentence. And a lot of professionals, obviously, a lot of medical professionals, and you have people like Dr. Shuley, whose original work was used to convict her, and he's come out about that. So what do you think the chances are? Do you think the chances are that she may well get her conviction quashed?
Well, with the amount of evidence that we have now, yes, definitely. But the thing is, the appeal system isn't very helpful to anybody, because it's so strict on what they will actually review. Excuse me. For instance, in the case of Lucy's first appeal, with Shuley's evidence there, you would think that would, turn everything around. This was his paper. He states quite clearly it was misrepresented by the prosecution. And you think that they would say, oh, right, we need to relook at this. No, they said that evidence was available at the time, and if we didn't use it, well, tough. Now, I can't get my head around this, because if it's obvious that there's an unfair trial there, they've got no choice but to relook at it. And the appeals system does not allow. There was looked at last week. I mentioned about the CCRC. There were try and remember the figures now. It's 1,629 applicants in the 12 months up to 2024. Out of that, 25 were forwarded from that. And that is not changed.
What do you mean? Say that again for me. 25 were forwarded where?
To the appeals.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. Oh, that's not great. The establishment does not like to admit it's made a mistake.
And out of that, there's only a small number actually get win their appeals. The system is so wrong. It has to be relooked at, and so does the way we investigate within the hospitals, within the healthcare system, and it doesn't just apply to the to patients dying in hospitals. It also applies to other cases outside. When you look at Sally Clark's case, had she had a medical experts to look at her case, not police, but medical experts, they would have come up with 99% likely to have come up with the cause of those babies' deaths. So I don't believe for 1 minute that the police are equipped to deal with any of these investigations in hospitals.
Wow.
They have no understanding, no experience of medical cases, and certainly not complex medical cases, as in the case of Lucy's. They should be very much like the air crash investigators, the rail crash. Once there's an accident there, then teams of experts come in and they look into every aspect. They rip it to pieces. They really investigate. They can look and go wherever they feel they need to get the answers. And once they've found the cause of that accident, then they will make recommendations. Now, in the aircraft investigations, they go worldwide. Every airline in the world has to abide by these recommendations. If we did that here in this country,
wow, change the game.
It would change completely, because all of these cases would be fully investigated by the experts in the field that they're looking at. Now, from that, you get recommendations that would have to go right across the NHS. That will improve patient care immensely. There won't be need for whistleblowers. There won't be a need for people to be scapegoated out. We need to get to the reason why it happened, learn from it, and put systems in place so that our patients get far better standards of care and far better and are far safer. At the moment, while you cover up systemic failures and patients dying, while you cover that up, you are not improving the patient care because you're not learning from it. And this is something that's very institutionalized. Well, scapegoating isn't just within the NHS, it happens everywhere else, but particularly within the NHS. We don't want it, we don't need it, and the patients certainly don't. I don't think there's a nurse, ever been a nurse, that's gone into that profession wanting to harm anybody. They've only ever wanted to make people better.
I think over the last 6 years, I think public trust in NHS in general has hit a major, major low. I mean, public trust in pretty much all our institutions has hit a major low anyway. And you have situations like this, which simply don't help it, because I've actually seen a change, VIVIENNE, since I started to cover this probably about 2 years ago now. People were really abusing me on the comments to start with. And they were like, you know, you're supporting a baby killer and everything. And that has changed a lot due to the hard work. But it's an uphill slog. It's an uphill slog because trust is so low. That's, I think, part of the problem. VIVIENNE, before you leave us today, what do you want absolutely for people to know about this case, and how can we support?
Well, I just want to know that, you know, the medical experts became involved in this case. All of them working pro bono, and it was going globally. This case, and the medical experts were looking in at it, particularly neonatologists, and they were looking at it and saying, "Hang on a minute, this is all wrong." We could, those with the medical knowledge and experience, could see as the court case was going along, there were issues there, problems there in standards of care that weren't being picked up. They were just going over everybody's head, because you've got a court there, a courtroom, a criminal court with a prosecution team with no medical experience.
Right.
A judge with no medical experience, a defense team with no medical experience, and a jury with no medical experience. So all the issues, the medical issues that were there, were not being picked up within the court, but those with medical experience watching it could see where the failings were.
Wow.
And started to ask the questions. That's why so many medical experts started to question.
Right.
Convicted.
Right.
Questioning before the conviction, but the question once the conviction came. And that's why it became so high profile, because it's the people with the medical experiences.
That's right.
That see the faults and see where the court had failed.
Oh, what a pity they weren't there at the trial. What such a pity. This is great. You'll love this. Herbert says carrying the light is always an uphill slog and a privilege. It is indeed. It's never easy when you're on the trajectory of trying to prove a wrong. But more power to your elbow. 19 nurses are doing a fantastic job. I think I've already put a link in the description to your website. Very much appreciate you being with us. Tell 19 I wish her great wellness. Great wellness. Lovely to have you with us, Vivienne Blondek from 19 Nurses. Take good care, Vivienne. Thank you for being with us.
Sonia. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. How clear is that? So you see, and she's absolutely right. The moment that the health professionals got involved, because they knew what had gone wrong. But it is really tricky because we have lost a lot of faith, haven't we? Let me take out my earplugs now. See that, check that you can hear me properly. Thank you for your kind words about my blue top. And I appreciate that. And I think it was Nellie who said she's enjoyed the show so far, which is great to hear. Thank you so much. And no, Chris, we don't believe in them at all. Lawyers went to school to learn law, so we don't have to, innit? That's why they're paid so much. Oh my God, don't even get me started on that, Nikki. I was having a conversation this weekend with some guys I know who are involved in litigation, and we were having a conversation about how hideously expensive people are now able to do so much online, right? Chat GPT is like doing the job of lawyers and barristers. Is extraordinary. And so, yes, lawyers are paid extraordinary amounts of money, and many of them make ridiculous mistakes on a constant basis. And I know that personally. Just want to say, Vivienne reminded me of something. Remember, we were supposed to be joined last week by a former airline pilot. And I talked to him the day before, and he was coming on to talk about toxic cabin air. Remember that? Well, apparently, this is a weird story. This does not make any sense to me, right? Everything was fine. And he was really pushy. He really wanted to come on. He really wanted to talk about it. He said that an investigation was necessary. It was celebrating the 20th year since he'd set up an organization to look into it. Anyway, he was apparently hospitalized last week, and I haven't heard from him since. Like I talked to him Sunday afternoon, and then he didn't show up Monday morning. And then he's apparently been hospitalized, and that's it. He's disappeared from the radar. That sounds really odd to me. I don't know about you lot. Jay is not a fan of Dr. Dowie Evans. Who is? I'm not at all. Doesn't that sound weird to you? What? Right. Jeannie wondered about this. It's weird. Yeah, it's really weird. I thought that was a really weird explanation. Isn't that odd? It's odd. It's weird. It's weird. I hope you're fine, John. I hope you're fine. Feel free to reach out to me in any way at all to notify me that everything is fine, because I think that is really odd. It's most odd, Stolly. Most odd indeed. So are we still discussing Keir Starmer? So that's it. Burnham's a shoo-in. He's in. It doesn't matter what anybody says, he's in. That's our 5th elected leader in what, 9 years, did I say? Yes, Mark, I do think that. How did you find out he was hospitalized? Good question. From the woman whose case he has been representing. The woman and her children were impacted by this toxic cabin air. And I tried to contact him. I rang him. I texted him. I emailed him. No response at all. Unelected. What did I say? And then she said, oh, no, his family had notified her that he'd been hospitalized. Weird stuff. Shug, you're playing their games going into their courts. Some of us have no choice, Shug. Some of us have no choice. Summer Breeze, something's wrong. Nikki wants Lammy. Come on, you're joking. You are kidding. Do you really? You want David Lammy as the PM? The lunatics are taking over the asylum. Yes, indeed, they really are. Right. What were we talking about, you beautiful people? What were we talking about? I did mention, I think, about the Muslim stabbing in Edinburgh. And the reason I'm disturbed about that is because of the overreaction that we get when anything happens, like what happened in Golders Green. Ambulances set alight, right? And the whole country is in uproar. Now, clearly, that is a two-tier society, but I suppose they were not going to have a COBRA meeting about Muslims being stabbed because Starmer had other things to consider, like the fact that he was on the way out. But anyway, yeah, right. This is what I want to talk about. Jeremy Vine and Vanessa Feltz. Media Watch. Ooh, let me see what I've just done there. Let me see if I bring her onto the screen. There she is. There we go. Jeremy Vine has a Channel 5 show, and that is taken over by various guest presenters, including the reprehensible Vanessa Feltz. And last week's show, so Live on 5, which is Jeremy Vine on 5, but this was Vanessa's segment. And they are now pushing, you might be able to see that, cervical cancer success, should all vaccines be mandatory. They've been on this forever. The pair of them are mandatory jab pushers. That's a reality. And, you know, there's a million questions that you can ask, right, when you're running that kind of show. But why should all vaccines be mandatory? Because they want to get people in a certain type of group thing, don't they? What's going on, Caroline, about Predator Australia? Vanessa Feltz. Is Vanessa Feltz still drinking custard? What the heck is that about? What's that about? And they're back to the vaccines. They are. And I thought it was important just to acknowledge that, because let us not forget what these people did during C-19. Jeremy Vine frequently defended the UK's vaccine rollout, clashed on air with guests or commentators who opposed the swift mRNA rollout. His daytime show tackled all manner of debates. Sorry, I've got to check my nose is clean. I don't want to be on air with a grubby nose, kids. His daytime show on Channel 5 and his BBC Radio 2 show pushed the whole lockdown mandate, lockdown rules, everything, masks, vaccines, all of it. And they're back on it again. So Vanessa Feltz, just the same. She used her BBC London and Radio 2 shows to constantly push government propaganda on COVID-19, on testing sites, on lockdown restrictions. She consistently hosted scientific experts, local organizers, to encourage listeners to take up the jab and support vulnerable communities during lockdown. I met Vanessa. I've been on shows with her a number of times, but a lot of the time it's often been when she's been in the studio and I've been on the end of a telephone. But on this one occasion that I actually met her, I've probably met her more than once actually, but this one sticks out in my mind. And I think it was November 2023. And we had all been pulled together to do a pilot on what they were hoping was going to be Talk TV. I'm sure I've talked about this before. And it was Vanessa Feltz, Jeremy Kyle, Rachel Johnson, an ex-Metropolitan cop, and me. And Vanessa arrived. This is now 2023, or if I've got it wrong, it's 2022, but it's well past all of lockdown. And she arrives on set with a mask, a face mask in the green room. And everyone thought she was weird and up herself. And everybody was like, you know, well, me and a couple of others kind of looking like, what's wrong with that woman? She is typical narrative establishment shills. Yes, she is. And they saw how profitable it was. Yes, they did indeed. Anyway, they're back on it again. So please beware, because now they're pushing obviously for cervical jabs. And if YouTube wasn't the way it was, I would have somebody on here doing a systematic breakdown about the issues to do with cervical cancer and the vaccines, which brings me actually to my next point. And this is much more heartening. Some people are deeply concerned about what are we going to do with the whole digital ID, because obviously in order to be able to log on to social media websites, you are going to need to be able to give up some kind of ID. At the moment, they're saying that you could probably give your like debit or credit card and that would be fine, but that's not going to last very long. And so I am absolutely working towards what I mentioned the other week, and that is we will have a main wake up on my website of which you will not require digital ID to access it. I want us to build a proper live chat. It will probably be streamed on, it can be streamed pretty much on any of them other than probably YouTube or X, because they talk about freedom of speech on X, but it's not free speech, not at all. But it probably could be streamed on Rumble, although I did see that Warren Thornton had lost their channel on Rumble, so that's quite difficult. But yeah, now then, that is the way to do it. That's the way to do it, is for us to do it ourselves. And no, I will not be asking for your identity in order for you to be able to log on to my website and be able to watch Wake Up from there. Can we log in with our new brain chip, says Simon. Yes, John, X absolutely promotes hate speech. Unquestionably, it does. And Elon Musk this weekend was like, they're only calling me a Nazi because they want me killed. No, people call you a Nazi, including me, because you're a Nazi. You behave like a Nazi. Behave like a Nazi. And I'm so over billionaires and trillionaires playing the victims. I'm so over it. Anyway, watch out for that. And that is going to be my solution to dealing with this, because many people who watch Wake Up are awake. They don't want to be signing up to digital ID or any of the things that the social media sites require of them. Well, I won't require that. Nikki doesn't want to give the government her debit card details. Yes, it's a police state. It's a police state. No, I'm not leaving YouTube, Randy. I'm coming up with a plan B, because people have been writing to me and they're upset. They're unhappy that they will probably have to supply at some stage some form of identification, even to be able to log into YouTube. It's only a matter of time before it's happening. So I'm trying to come up with a plan B, which we have. We know that this is a solution. It's just a case of getting it built. So that's what we're doing. Yes, Mark, absolutely. Digital ID is the first step to a Stasi-like secret police. Yes, there on so many levels. Thank you for saying what you say, Sonia. You are very welcome. Oh, wait, we've got a lawyer. Damien says, I'm a lawyer. Vivienne is spot on, refunding. Ooh, thank you. You're welcome, John. This country is worse than North Korea, Stephen. I think North Korea has only had like 3 unelected leaders over the period that we've had 5. No, I didn't announce I've resigned. Absolutely not. I'm here for the duration, kids. Yes, all good. Right. Let me continue with the news, you beautiful people. You beautiful, beautiful people. Did you see? This is interesting. I think a lot of these organizations like Big Brother Watch and the Together Declaration, I think they're just kind of pretty toothless. They sort of exist to look as if they're doing something. I'm sure they would completely disagree with me, but they haven't managed to stop any of the things that apparently they were going to, like the surveillance state or digital ID or any of those things. You're welcome, Jay. I give it my best shot. Gina, we are good. Listen, I am good with all faiths, all religions, all nationalities, Muslim, Judaism, Christianity, whatever, as long as you're not like involved in the kind of race baiting or the division. I will protect anybody. I will not see people attacking another person just because of their denomination or the color of their skin or whatever. I'll take them down. I'll take them down, because let's remember, I'm in my villain era now. Let's go on to the 77th. So this is interesting, right? And they're raising this up, but we kind of already knew this. Now, during the COVID period, they had the 77th, which was kind of like a military arm, which was looking into mis and disinformation online. And they had targeted a number of journalists and academics. And I was one of the people that was surveyed as well. Although it's always interesting because people like me never get any representation from like Big Brother Watch. They're only interested in people like Julia Hartley Brewer, who, you know, I mean, Julia Hartley Brewer and people like her were not a resistance during COVID. They weren't, right? Even though they like to tell each other that nobody worked any harder or was more resistance than Julia Hartley Brewer ever. Rubbish. But people like Big Brother Watch, they like the Julia Hartley Brewers. They like people like me less so. But I was also under that surveillance. Anyway, the reality is that the UK COVID inquiry is burying evidence. That is the reality. It has endorsed the state surveillance because it admitted and failed to publish a Rule 9 witness statement that detailed this covert monitoring that was taking place. And that was under the government CDU, Counter Disinformation Unit, which became known as the 77th. And the inquiry requested and received a detailed witness statement outlining how the Counter Disinformation Unit had been working and operating on those who dared to ask questions about C19. And the CDU routinely recorded that lawful speech. It's lawful speech. I wasn't breaking the law by asking questions, but they decided to monitor me anyway. And they monitored me on a platform that I was working on. And I think they monitored me on Twitter as well and on my own website. Anyway, the UK COVID inquiry has concluded that the CDU's covert social media monitoring activities were lawful, necessary, and proportionate. Here's the thing, and we all said it, didn't we? I mean, most of us said it, and that is, first of all, if the jabs were as good as they said they were, they wouldn't have needed as many incentives to force people. Coercion, they use coercion on people. They use blackmail, they use bribery. All across the world, strange things were happening. Remind me of some of the craziest stuff. Wasn't there, like in Holland, prostitutes were being offered if you took your jab? I think was McDonald's offering ice cream. There was mad stuff all across the world. Bioweapon, right? The monitor lizards. Yes. Illuminati got their eye on me. Oh, get a gothic. You've just reminded me of something. I wonder if I've got an image that I can show you. Anyway, basically, the inquiry is completely buried. What took place in that counter disinformation unit doesn't acknowledges it, but says it was completely lawful. Well, I beg to differ. Free weed in Washington, free burgers in New York. They said save grandma. Fred, they did, didn't they? How the pressure that they put us under was actually, I think, should be studied. And I'm sure it will be at some stage. But there was a resistance with people like me and people like you. We were part of the resistance. Jacqueline, they did offer blooming donuts. They did hookers in Austria, says Rachel. Yes, Gina, they do. Keep monitoring people, because the thing is, the fact that they did monitor me, I was happy about that, in the same way as I was happy to appear in the Epstein files, ratting on Epstein and Andrew. So I'm quite happy to appear in these files or be monitored because of the reasons that I am being monitored. That's why. Anyone who literally begs and bribes you to take an injection is up to no good. Now, was it Ghetto Gothic who just made a comment about, did anybody see, I wonder if I've got an image of this. Let me see if I can find it. Dua Lipa, who I actually quite like, but her wedding outfit caught my eye quite literally. And you've just reminded me, I'm just trying to find the image. I maybe can't find it. And then everybody's going to go and try and find it now. But essentially, she had an Eye of Horus on her wedding jacket. I'm going to find it for next Monday's show. I never took any jab, even though my own family were calling me, whoa, really? Were they? See, that's the thing, isn't it? Is how people are. None of my loved ones turned on me, I have to say. And my loved ones, some of my loved ones were jabbed up, but none of them turned on me because they expected that from me. Christine's off to watch her grandson in the sandpit. You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. I want to turn to a comment from Neve. Thank you, Neve. I was talking last week about Justice Jeremy Johnson, and Justice Jeremy Johnson had decided to append a terrorism charge to 4 Palestine activists who had only been convicted of criminal damage, and one of them had been convicted for harming a cop. These are the facts. And I did some shorts about that, and there were some people who were like, no, they should have got far worse. But because people just want to be governed harder, govern me harder. That's what they want. They just want to be governed harder. They ignore the fact that the judge made an unprecedented move that will impact the British judiciary system that one day may be made against them. But they forget all that. But anyway, Neve wrote to me, morning to you, Neve. She said, hiya, Sonia. Being from England, that's me, not her. The idea of a judge deciding a case without a jury and pinning the offences as terrorism may sound shocking and unprecedented to you and the Wake Up crew. But if you're from Northern Ireland, it's something that's happened for decades and in a limited form still exists today. And she is, of course, talking about internment, where people could be detained without trial, and the diplock courts where people were tried in court, but by a judge sitting alone rather than a jury. And Neve goes on to talk about how the non-jury trials still exist in Northern Ireland today, and actually recommended a book which I've already ordered, which is called Ulster, Ulster by the Sunday Times Insight team, and that really covers it. But I think what was really interesting, what Niamh said, not only thank you, I always appreciate people pointing out to me what else is happening in the rest of the world, right? I don't necessarily want it always to be so UK centric, although of course I'm here, so a lot of the news is going to be, but it's really important to understand that stuff like this has been going on elsewhere for a very long time. Northern Ireland, the poor people of Northern Ireland, and what Niamh said, which really kind of really, I thought it's so current in so many respects, is Niamh also referred to what had been going on in Belfast the other week. You remember the riots, the setting fire to people's homes, the going from door to door and car to car to check if there were black and brown people because it was a pogrom. And Niamh said, and this sort can all be seen in the loyalist riots occurring in Belfast at the moment. The RUC looked after the Protestant community and their paramilitary wings for decades. The revised RUC, aka the PSNI, which is the police force, are today still allowed their loyalist paramilitaries to operate in Belfast with a level of freedom seen nowhere else. And Niamh goes on to talk about how we saw it, how we saw these hoods holding stop and search on the main road in and out of Belfast, inspecting cars for immigrants. Where else would the police let that happen? What a great question. And also and Niamh goes on to say it's also a two-tier level of policing that has fueled anger with the Noah Donohoe case. It's all linked. The Noah Donohoe case is a tragedy and, in my opinion, shaping up to be the king of all cover-ups. But Niamh, thank you so much. I've ordered that book. I want to find out more. This is important stuff from not just history, but what is happening today. And obviously, we need to know what happened historically, because it does explain rather a lot of what is happening today as well. What's Ange? You won't get ivermectin over here. What's that? What's going on? I went on long walks during COVID. They're in a world of their own, these beautiful people. So thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. And a quick warning, Bijan contacted me, and it was weird. Generally, my emails don't even want to see them. They're a mess. But when I was just in my emails this morning, sending off links to my guests, this message popped up from Bijan. And I'm so glad that it did, because it's a warning, and I want to send out a warning to people. And Bijan said, probably too late for today's show. Ordinarily it would be, Bijan, but not on this occasion. Goes on to say, but my niece, a doctor, advised me to take my mum out of hospital ASAP. She's been there since last Monday. Infection in the leg, ulcer, open wound, etc., as they have been warned to expect high death counts this week due to the heat wave and poor air circulation in wards. It is not unusual to get temperatures up to 40 degrees in wards. Elderly patients who do not need to be in hospital as a necessity may fare better at home, especially if they have air conditioning or windows to open. Kind regards, Bijan. Big statement. Yeah, wow, indeed. Stephen lives in a village that has a river running through it. Who is Kelvin? Wait, Kevin McKernan. Who's Kevin McKernan? What's Bugs Bunny? I'm completely lost with these comments, but I love you all the same. No heat wave here. Where are you, Shug? It's hot here. It's already shaping up to be one of those days. They have the heating on in summer in Burton-on-Trent Queen's Hospital. Gary says, just in Northern Ireland, the Portuguese state continues as basically fascist, despite the hoo-ha over, that's gone so quickly, despite the hoo-ha over liberation, which is a ruse to fool the masses. Yes, people, so you're in Portugal, are you? So people do often consider the Portuguese to be particularly free and open. Is Starmer crying, Slybry? Is he on live on the news? Alex, no air conditioning for hospital patients, question mark. I think a lot of these buildings are quite old, and think about what Vivienne said. What Vivienne was also talking about was what happened following the 2010 election. And that was when David Cameron got together with the Lib Dems, because none of them had enough votes for a full mandate. So they came together as a coalition government. And that was when they began to force through the changes to the NHS, of which Andy Burnham, by the way, was at one stage, I think he was the Shadow Health Secretary, but Andy Burnham, even though he was like, oh, we're not going to, no privatisation of the NHS. I reported on Andy Burnham recently in a report and how he was at a meeting with, I think it was Tony Blair. So it was when they were in power. And that was one of the first meetings to do with the privatisation of the NHS. Just to say. And so what Vivienne was talking about was the depletion of the NHS. It's been a controlled demolition for a very long time, but certainly very noticeable since 2012, when they wanted to essentially change the law around the Health and Social Care Bill and make our National Health Service, and make it 49% private. So it has been a depletion. So do not be surprised if there's not sufficient air conditioning. And if you're in a position where you're in hospital, but you can get out, then I would recommend you do. And honestly, I don't want to be responsible for your healthcare. So you've got to do whatever you've got to do. But I really appreciate what Bijan has written in to say. It's grey here. What do you mean grey? How can it be grey? Where are you? You're in Scotland, Shug. You've got to be kidding. Yes, Alex. It takes a lot to get me in hospital these days. I'm not going willingly. I'm not after what I saw, what they did to my sister. No, sirree. Nope. I should have already been warned from when I was young and what happened with my mum. But, you know, I was so young then. But my sister, what happened with my sister back in, I think, 2022 in hospital. And I witnessed it. Very poor care indeed. Atrocious. Look after yourself. Yep. It's Dreech here. Is that wet? Also, just to remind you, lovely Madeleine's book, A Beautiful Revolution Indeed. Winner of Madeleine's book is Greta from Keswick in Cumbria. And I love this book. I think I'm going to read some of how I described it. It functions between a family travel memoir and a socio-political manifesto. And it does feel like a manifesto in its own right. And I talked about how even though I hadn't completed the book, it's a lovely book, I have read rather a lot of it, but I'm already returning to it because there's a lot of information in this. And it's one of those books where you really feel that you're getting an experience of a family, because it's about home educating children, traveling around Australia. And you really feel that you're getting this wonderful sort of travel memoir together with all this wonderful wisdom and knowledge about home educating children and nature and natural immunity and issues with vaccines and all that sort of stuff. Really knowledgeable book, but it's only available to buy. It's not available at Amazon. It's only available to buy at peacetide.co.uk. She is avoiding, Madeleine, is avoiding Amazon. And if I haven't already, I will put a link in the description to Peacetide, as I did last week. And find your local water. Oh, Dreech is sort of grey, damp and miserable. So yes, glorious book indeed. Just to say, really important, and that is, I don't often see the comments on YouTube. I use the app, and the app will only pop up certain comments, so I don't get abusive comments, right? But I am aware that sometimes my viewers get very upset when they see abusive comments directed at me. Okay, and I just want to send out a message out there. It's fine, because you're looking at it through your eyes, but my eyes is someone who's been doing this an awful long time, and I've been called every name under the sun, and some that aren't even invented yet, right? So I don't mind that. I do journalism around here. I don't do propaganda and I don't do PR, but I must just correct something. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure that the first comment is a pinned comment, which says, if there is a correction to be made, please email it to me, because I often don't see it if it's in the comments, and email it to me at soniapoulton@sky.com. And if it requires evidence, then send me evidence. And if it is a legitimate correction, I will correct it. Now, Friday's video, not all of you were happy with Friday's video, and that's just one of those things, but misinformation is rife. The misinformation is this. So one of my lovely viewers, she wrote to me, and she seemed to be under the impression that I didn't want to deport convicted criminals. I don't know where you got that from, because I absolutely do. I've said this repeatedly. We have enough of our own criminals. If somebody has come in from another country and they are carrying out a crime, deport them. Absolutely. So I just wanted to clear that up. But everything else I stand by. I stand by what I said on Friday. So that's just one of those things. I don't, as I say, I don't do PR and I don't do propaganda. And there's a lot of problems with that Rupert Lowe rape gang inquiry report. And bit by bit, people are realizing it. Look, I tried to be as in the round about it as possible. But the reality is that the 20 examples that they used in it, that hardly any of them had been originally abused by Pakistani Muslims. Almost all of them, the vast majority, were first abused by white men or let down by their working class white families. That is not an attack. I already said this is based on my own experience. It's based on my own experience. And I don't like the way what's happened over the last week. I think it's an absolute, the stabbing of 2 Muslim men, I think is an absolute consequence of what is taking place. Listen, I am in no doubt whatsoever that those rape gangs not only existed, but still exist. Of that, I'm in no doubt whatsoever, and I will call them out. But however, you cannot hold an entire group of people responsible for the actions of a percentage within it. It's wrong. When Hugh Edwards was arrested for being a nonce, did we automatically assume that every newsreader was a nonce? No, we didn't. And what about Paul Preston Davey? Where are people rioting about gay dads adopting? No, they're not. And it's because that was a racist agenda. And I think that there was, I feel very sorry for a lot of the people who contributed to the rape gang inquiry and the fact that they have been systematically ignored by legacy media. And they've been ignored by legacy media because the report, one, highlights stuff that they don't not necessarily want to talk about. I accept that. But the report is also factually really problematic, and that lets down survivors. So yeah, just wanted to clear that up. No, I deport, absolutely deport. And as I say, if my videos contain inaccuracies or untruths, please contact me with evidence and I will make a correction when it is deemed that it should be made. I will not be correcting based on you having a different opinion from me. Villain era, I don't care if you have a different opinion to me. I really don't. You are absolutely entitled to it. It's fine. And let me be clear, neither do I delete negative comments. I think it's important to show all, whether I agree with them or not, that's irrelevant. However, one thing I will make very, very clear is I will not respond to anyone who approaches me in bad faith. And some of the comments that I was made aware of were from people who hadn't even watched the whole video. They were like, get Sammy Woodhouse on, Sammy Woodhouse in the video. How to tell me you haven't watched the video? Anyway, that's just what I wanted to say. And this is my position. And I doubled down. Yeah, because I'm really sick of people folding when they get a bit of criticism. Nope. And it was really interesting because initially people were upset with me. Apparently didn't see the comments. I didn't see the comments. But I heard about them and I noted I'd lost 25 of my subs on YouTube. And I was like, well, it happens, swings and roundabouts. But yeah, over the weekend as a whole, I gained 150. So that's just the way it goes. And that actually will take me very shortly into the end comment. And sometimes in order to be able to grow and evolve, you have to be prepared to shake off history, the past. Not everybody can travel with me at the same time. So first of all, want to say thank you, donators. I really appreciate you. Thank you, Helen O'Carroll. Thank you, Noradin Sidom. Thank you, Pete Birch. Thank you, Bookmark. Thank you, Swiss Miss. Thank you, Marilyn Devonish. Thank you, Wafer. Thank you, Lownie. And thank you all this morning. I appreciate you again, Jillpedia, Nymph, and Catherine Hutton. Very much appreciate you. Let's get on to a lighter and brighter subject. First of all, I'm going to play you a video. This, is that going to play? Or, no, it's not. This is a butterfly that I found yesterday. Right now, I have not, or rather we have not, I'm going to play the video. I'm going to bring it back. We have not had a butterfly in the garden probably 3 years. Probably 3 years. So I've been doing all this work in the garden, as people know around here, because I talk about it a lot. And that's for my peace of mind as well. But butterflies have started to return. And where is that video? I want to play that video because honestly, it made me so happy yesterday. So happy indeed. Let me just find it. I'm going to find it because it's pretty, just pretty and lovely. Here we go. This is the butterfly. I think this is called a comma butterfly. Look at that. Look at that. This, and it's because, you know, like I'm, you know, kicking up the earth and changing it all around out there. But I'm going to show you now a before and after of my garden so far. How beautiful is that? But not only that, a couple of other things, right, in terms of nature. And obviously, butterflies are about a metamorphosis. I definitely feel I'm going through a metamorphosis. And when I say I don't care, it doesn't mean I don't care about the person, but I don't care that you have a different opinion to me. I don't. I'm an adult. I mean, I've been doing this an awful long time. It doesn't matter. It is absolutely irrelevant to me. So there's this metamorphosis, because I used to seek to try and find a way that we could meet, but sod that. If you've got a different opinion to me, it's cool. We don't have to meet. We don't have to meet halfway. No, we don't. I can accept that you have a different opinion to me. And so that is a metamorphosis that I'm going through myself, which is a fantastic feeling. I'm loving that. But also, when my daughter was in Geneva last week, I wonder if I've got this image. She was sat having a coffee, and suddenly this bird flew to her. Absolutely lovely. And I just trying to find it. And it was like she's sitting having this coffee. Why is it not showing up for me now? That's a bugger. Anyway, I'll be able to show my own one. But so she sent it to me, and I was like, oh, that's beautiful that it's just come near you. It must sense something about you, something natural. Swiss Miss, thank you for your super chat. I very much appreciate it. It must sense something, you know, your harmony, your peace and whatever. And then lo and behold, 2 days later, a bird flies into the conservatory, which I've now converted into my office because it's absolutely beautiful out there. And look at this, went and sat on top of a wicker basket that I have in the corner of the room. There it is. You can see it. Because that bird just flew in. Isn't that amazing? Thank you, Marilyn, for your super chat. I very much appreciate that. So that bird just flew in. So it's like there's a return to nature happening around me. And we've got like ants outside. I mean, it's just incredible. Again, we didn't have them last year. So something different has happened. Something different has happened, that suddenly the birds are back, and, you know, and the butterflies are back, and the ants are back. And I love all that. There were too many ants for me the other day. They were actually coming in the conservatory, which is a bit unfortunate, but I love nature, as everybody knows. I love it. It keeps me sane. And why ever not? And so this is what I want to show you. So this is the garden that, as it started, this is where I'd raked it down to nothing after winter, and it was essentially destroyed. Look at it. You can actually see it. What a mess. What an absolute mess. Destroyed all throughout winter. And so this is what I have done so far in order to improve matters. I think it will pop up any second. There we go. What about that as a change? I did that all with my own hands, And so what you have, and I've repainted the seat here and the arch at the end, and I've planted and I've laid down new turf, and even the turf that I bought that was dead, I've managed to reseed that, and I've fitted kind of like, you know, wooden panels around. Do you like that, peeps? Do you like that? I'm so enjoying it. Jay, I do actually think that there's some truth in that, because I also made a little small pond at the end as well, and all the flies around it and everything. You see little creatures in it that I don't even recognize what they are. But it's a big change, isn't it, Cosmic? Isn't that a big change? And I'm loving that. I love it so much. And I think in a year's time, because I've put so much plants down the side of this path now, I think in a year's time, it will look like a whole different garden out there. So I hope so. But thank you for coming with me on this journey. And I have been recording it, and I do intend to do one of those, you know, those TikTok videos where they do everything that's taken months into 30 seconds or whatever, because I have recorded so much of it. So I do intend to do that. So, and I do love nature returning. I really do. And so what's to say, really? This last section, which I have called Wake Ups, Wind Down. Old ways do not open new doors. And I realized that. I've been realizing that for a long time. I wasn't here live on Friday because I was off to a meeting whereby things are finally coming together. Things that have been happening to me for a very, very long time that should not have been happening to me. And it's all finally coming together, because the problem is sometimes people overplay their hands and they get caught out. So things that have been happening to me is now finally coming together, and I'm starting to feel a sense of wholeness that I probably haven't felt for a very long time. And as soon as I get the nod, you will know everything about it. Everything about it. Thank you so much for that super chat, all that fluff and stuff in Australia. But what if I love you more, though? What if I love you more? So wake ups, wind down. Old ways do not open new doors. And as I said, I've been going through some changes, and what I've realized is you cannot begin to unlock a new chapter in your life unless you are prepared to get rid of old, outdated routines. And do you know what? Even though I've always been somebody who's kind of stood by my beliefs and stood up to be counted, there is still a side of me that which was of people pleasing. And I didn't necessarily realize it. I didn't. But I know it was there because it's not anymore. And that doesn't mean I'm going to stomp around being aggressive or anything like that. But it just means that people cannot manipulate me. When I have gone through the process of being a journalist and looking into details, your PR and your propaganda cannot change my mind. So take that how you want. The aim is not necessarily to fall out with people, but I'm quite happy to fall out with people if I have to. Quite happy to do that. And as I said, it was very interesting how I lost some who were upset with me about the report. And then I actually gained many. I think in total I lost 30 and then gained 150. So it is swings and roundabouts. And it's because that 150, they see a side to me that they probably haven't seen before, and they like it. And it's not because figures are not my issue. My issue is saying my piece, right? What needs to be said for my own sanity, as well as it being in the public interest. So anyway, you cannot get a different result. That old thing, right? You cannot get a different result by doing things all the same old way. And so I just thought I wanted to talk about that issue of how recognizing when you're stuck. Some people don't even realize when they're stuck, and there's a trap that kicks in, especially a routine trap. And I'm sure many of my viewers can relate to that. And that is when we do a 9 to 5, it's like, we do that and we get on with it, and we fit in between those hours, whatever it is that we can fit in, and onwards and onwards. And there is also a comfort zone that comes from that. Well, me personally, I want to break out of any comfort zone. I'm so tired of comfort zones. I've never been good on routine anyway. This is the most routine I do, kids, is wake up on Mondays and Fridays. The most routine. The rest of the week, I do things in my own time and as I feel inspired to, except for like meetings that I have to attend. But even that I've got down to a bare minimum because I hate meetings. Anyway, so it's about breaking out. Recognize where you're stuck. Recognize where there's an unhealthy routine that does not liberate you, that traps you, and also about breaking out of a comfort zone. Nothing wrong with that at all. But also it involves a mindset shift, okay? Because you have to unlearn outdated ideas. Now, because I have such a strong empathy based on my own experience with survivors, sometimes I can perhaps go more on side of the survivors than the actual big truth of the picture. And that has to change. That has to change. I'm really interested in truths. And so my empathy will always be there, but not to the degree where I'm going to be lying about a report, right? That's not going to happen. So that was a mindset shift that had to take place. And there are some steps that you can take place in order to action them. And that is, first of all, identify the pattern. Identify the pattern and define the new. And I like that idea of defining the new, right? What appears, none of this may apply to you. You may be perfectly happy with your life and your lot and the way it's functioning. But I'm always looking for change. I'm that kind of person. I think a lot of it is to do with probably being quite unsettled as a child, moving around quite a lot. I don't know if I've ever told you the story of unknown to any of us, and we still don't know why because she's no longer with us. But when I was 1 year old, mum uprooted us from our council house and took us to live on a traveller site for a period of time. So the first kind of years of my life was spent on a traveller site, which is probably why I feel such affinity with travelers, with movement, and I'm probably a commitment phobe as well. So I'm always looking for the new. And so one of the things I wanted to do was, how do I want to kind of redefine Wake Up? What direction do I want it to go in? And I started to write down all the things that I want to achieve from it, and how I can achieve that, and what kind of fresh approach I can take. And one of those fresh approaches is for us to have Wake Up for us on my website, so my wonderful viewers do not have to go through a process of digital ID to be able to see me. So that's definitely one of the things on my agenda. The other thing is bringing in somebody to take care of my emails in order to be able to free me up so that I can do the things that I'm more needed for. So all of this stuff is taking place for me, and in order also to kind of banish with the old, you have to be prepared to challenge the status quo. And if that includes people that you liked being abusive to you, so what? At least you find out who they are, right? So what? So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm all about the new at the moment. And that doesn't mean that I want to get rid of entirely of the old. No, because I embrace the old, because the old is the foundation of what we're doing around here. But we obviously have to keep moving. You obviously have to keep changing, because change is always happening. It always is. But I just like that whole idea of you simply cannot open a door doing things the old way. You can't, if you want to make a change. And you might not want to make a change, but I just feel that that's been the big message for me over the last week. And especially with the butterfly, especially with the bird actually coming into our conservatory / office, and my daughter having a similar experience, all of that together. And I'm going to just say something. A lot of people don't like me talking about this, but tough again, villain era. And that is, I did a tarot message for myself today, and I got the World. And I don't know if anybody knows what the World means, but that's about completion. It's the last card of the major arcana, and it's about completion. And so there is a sense of completion. We're moving from the old and we're moving into the new. Anything can change. One of the things that I absolutely promise you I'm going to do more of is go out and about. So for example, the murder, I'm going to call it the murder of Dr. David Kelly, will be coming up in July. So I aim to go down to the scene of the crime, because he was murdered, and possibly report from there. And hopefully I can get some guests to come with me. And if not, then I can get them on. And I've sussed out the new equipment that I need in order to be able to do a proper outside broadcast. So I definitely want to take it there, because I love doing outside broadcasts. So you can see I am in the mood to shake things up. And as ever, I want to thank my wonderful supporters, all wonderful supporters who support me around here. And I'm going to finish with a quote. And it is old ways. And I've already said that. Old ways do not open new doors. No, that's not the quote that I want to finish with. I want to finish with, the old must always make way for the new, and one thing must be built out of the ruins of another. There is no murky pit of hell awaiting anyone. And I believe that. I want to see this as a generous, loving universe that wants absolutely the best for each and every one of us, as long as we have the courage to step forward on our new path. I built my own new path in my garden. So I just want to say thank you to everybody here today. I very much appreciate all your generosity. Thank you, Mark. You are eternally generous. Thank you, Danielle. You too. So many incredibly generous people. I really do value you. I really do. And my aim is never to deliberately to upset people. But if I do upset you, it's just one of those things. But I love you. You know I love you. Right, I'm out of here. Don't forget this magnificent book, A Beautiful Revolution. Highly, highly recommended. Rumble chat, I forgot you again. Shame on me. Taffy says the English Constitution is the solution for us all. Yes, change for the better is welcome, but not if it's for the worse. You're very welcome, people. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you all on the Rumble chat, you beautiful people. I love you all. I will see you Friday. Back to normal. Not going to be a pre-recorded show. Back to normal. And yeah, have a terrific week. Take good care of yourself. We have a new Prime Minister any second now, if they haven't already announced it. Who knew by the end of the stream that Prime Minister Keir Starmer would be out the door? We did. That's why we opened with it. Take good care of yourself. Lots of love to you. See you Friday.